I got money on my mind. I'm just trying to get some dough. I ain't picking up my line unless it's money on the phone.
My name is Antwi Atuahene. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, but my parents are from Ghana. But I was born in Toronto, raised in Toronto's a city where I have a bunch of different cultures. So I was very cultured growing up. We were around a bunch of different type of people. I started playing basketball at a young age, baseball as well, and soccer. But I kind of ran off with basketball because it's a sport I can kind of dominate more versus a sport like soccer or baseball. From there, in high school, I had a great high school basketball career. I was named the #1 player in Canada. I got a basketball scholarship to Rutgers University. Things didn't work out there with the transcript. I decommitted from there, went to a junior college in Texas, Trinity Valley TVCC for a year. I became a junior college player of the year. That's when I transferred to Arizona State. 3 years there, got a degree in mass communications and business. Had a great college career, met a bunch of great people. And after college, I played about 8 years pro. And in my pro experiences, I played a lot in South America, a lot in Asia. I finished off in Canada. And with the London Lightning with a championship. And even when I was playing pro basketball, I was always looking on ways to be an entrepreneur or giving back to my community and kind of changing the narrative because people I grew up around in those times are going in different directions. And I want to kind of help the next generation from going there. Other than that, from the basketball and sports side of it, on the entrepreneur side of it, I was really a go-getter and a doer. So I wanted to start things that I can plant and grow myself and watch them grow organically as I put in work to it.
Love it. I love it.
I love that.
So with that said, like being that you were always looking at entrepreneurship, like when was your first crack at it? Was it like while you were still playing or like you kind of like waited till after you got past that?
Was it even in you as a child?
Yeah, well, this is what it was. As a child, when we used to have like basketball tournaments, you have to raise money. I would always raise the most money because I was never afraid to go talk to somebody and ask them, hey, you want to buy a box of chocolates? And then, I mean, you're not supposed to do it, but they told me to sell the chocolate for $2. But I'd always make deals like, listen, I'll give you 3 boxes of chocolate for $10. They'd be like, all right, cool, because I know people wanted stuff in quantity. So I'm already picking up these transferable traits from like building a network at a young age without knowing I'm building a network. So it started from young. That hustle was always in me, you know. And I took that ability to communicate and expanded on it from a young age all the way till now.
Hey, that's powerful, especially the fact that you were able to realize and capitalize on it. Like, yo, I can raise this money. I'm gonna show you I can do it consistently, but you weren't afraid to make those type of deals too, because a lot of times when they were kids, oh, I got this chocolate, it's just $2, you know, right. Buy one from me. But you're like, no, look, I'm gonna make it a sweet deal for you. You give me $10, you get this whole box, and we're gonna keep on pushing.
Right, 100. And a big thing about that is I figured out who to talk to. So I would approach a family, maybe of 3 or 4, and I'm not gonna ask the daddy if he wants the chocolate. I'm gonna ask the kid. I'm gonna ask the kid, hey, you want some of these chocolates? I got the kid pulled in, now the dad can't tell him no. So I already knew, like, okay, cool, networking, building promo towards this demographic. And now when I got them something, I can bring him in. Now he has to buy. So I already had that in my mind.
Hey, that's dope. And whenever you were growing up, did you have any other? Was your parents or your dad and mom, did they kind of set those examples, or were there any type of entrepreneur examples set in front of you for you to pick up that type of acumen?
Well, it wasn't entrepreneurship growing up in an African household, but it was heavily engraved on education. They're big on education. But my mother woke up every single day at 5 a.m. She worked at like a drug plant, like they're making like a pharmacist kind of. And my father was very intellectual, intelligent. He was a teacher. So, I had the best of both worlds with those two. And they stayed on top of me with different things in it. And they also gave me autonomy to like go and do my own thing. I'm the middle child. So I had an older brother, a younger sister. So I'm the kid that kind of go do his thing and make him go figure it out.
That's crazy. I always see that like with that middle child, y'all just go do whatever y'all want to do.
Gotta get it, man.
Gotta go get it. Yeah, for sure.
So Antwi, I do kind of want to ask now, man. So like, what was that transition like for like you leaving your playing career? Because you know a lot of people they struggle with that transition, like they going from making money as an athlete to having to figure out how they're gonna move not playing sports. Because like you said, you play basketball your whole life. Like that's a transition, because that becomes a very large part of your life. You spend time practicing, you spend time doing all these things. So like, how was that transition?
One word: humbling. Humbling. That transition was humbling because you go into a space where you're so used to knowing that if I put this amount of work in on the basketball court and my training every single day, I'm going to get this result. While I'm going to becoming an entrepreneur is people think it's all glamorous and glitz when it's not. The hardest thing is to be an entrepreneur. I had to kind of like kill my ego and go into places not looking for a dollar, but looking for experience. And that's what set me on that right track, looking for wisdom through mentorship, but not asking for a dollar, just being able to soak up some intellectual property and knowledge and be a fly on the wall. And then later on, tell them how I can add value to them without them giving me a dollar. And that was the biggest thing for me. It was difficult, man. It was scary. It was a scary thing. And you kind of have to reinvent yourself. You have to go from athlete into somebody that you never were, because you can't take an athlete into a meeting. You can't say, I'm this basketball player in a meeting. They don't care about that. Who are you to your core? So you have to like find yourself, rebuild yourself, and reinvent yourself, which is it's a beautiful thing. It's kind of like the caterpillar effect going into the butterfly. And if you're afraid of like that caterpillar effect, you're never going to become a beautiful butterfly. So I enjoyed it.
Hey, that's powerful. And I kind of want to ask you though, the fact that you were an athlete and so used to competition, how did that give you an edge being an entrepreneur?
I think that's everything. So as an athlete, you have to find ways to tap into your competitive nature and use your transferable traits from your athletic life to your entrepreneur life. You can't disconnect from that. That's the biggest skill trait you have over everyone else if you're a dominant athlete or an elite athlete. So my transferable traits as an athlete, as a competitor, was my leadership, was my communication, was my initiative. Like as a basketball player, I can see the plays happen before and read it. So as an entrepreneur, I can see the demographic shifting before and read it ahead of time. I know who to speak to. I'm gonna treat the secretary like the janitor, like the CEO. Just like I'm gonna treat the big man like the point guard, like the shooting guard, like our manager on the team, because all of them play a role in me being successful. So those are like the main things that I kind of looked at and grasped easily.
Hey, that's powerful, because you're able, like you said, to adjust before you have to react. So now you're from a position of proactivity. So now you're able to adjust and kind of like anticipate what's going to happen now.
There you go.
So now you can say, okay, maybe I don't have it all figured out, but I can think about if it goes left or if it goes right. This is how we'll react to it, instead of getting bust in the mouth. And now what do I do?
100%. That's the best way I can ever hear it put, just like that. But it's that going on in my mind at all times, but not making it seem like I'm in a situation where I'm nervous, but it's like organized chaos, if you want to say. And I've always felt like it was never survival of the fittest. It was survival of the most adaptable. So I always wanted to be like water. Like I want to adapt to anything coming my way. As a basketball player as well, teams are going to throw different defenses at you when you score 40. They're going to put a box and one on you now. How are you going to adapt? They're going to put a bigger guy on you to shorten the court. They're going to put a bigger DB on you or a smaller DB on you because you're faster, whatever the case may be. In every sport, same thing. How are you going to adapt? What are you going to do? How are you going to adjust?
And I like that. And I kind of want to go into what was one of your first ventures that you had to adapt to. So can you kind of go back and replay that for the listeners? What was one of those first things? And I noticed that you said you didn't work for money. So how did you attack that?
Perfect. So my first venture was Youth R Us. And it's a group that I started with a business partner, Clive Williams. And we went in there to go in the inner city in Toronto to kind of help these kids who are like in an at-risk community with a lot of gang violence activity, not that many resources, but give them not just a basketball program, but a mentorship program with resources for them to like get from basketball to like the real world in a good way. And I went in there, and there's things that you have, like you can write grants, you can find sponsors, etc. We wrote every grant you can write. We reach out to every sponsor you can get, and we literally got $0 back. Damn. Literally. Damn. So, but you can look at it two ways. Either you under deliver and these kids get hurt by it, or you can under promise and over deliver and these kids benefit from it. So I went in there like, you know what, this we got to do. We got to adjust now. We're not going to get no sponsorships from anybody. We're not going to get no money. What relations do we have? Who do I know? Boom. I know a guy at Adidas. Call my guy at Adidas. Hey, we need some uniforms for our team. Well, we can do this and do that. Boom. I know another guy who works at this food spot. He can give us some meals. Boom. I know another guy who does notebooks. We can do this. So the relationship equity I built along the years came to play. And now I got all these things in kind for no dollar figure, but it was helping the kids and help build our program. So now when I go back to these same companies or these grants in the government to show them what the product is that we didn't use a dollar from, now they're going to be obliged to invest in it because the product is already shown to be successful without any help. So imagine what happens when you give us some help.
And I love that you took that energy and you didn't let that discourage you. And you said, I got these kids, they're dependent on me. So I need to do something for them and I can't quit. I like how you were able to lean on your social resources is what it is, your social resources. And you were okay, hey man, like, can you help me out here? Let me show you why this is important too. This is not just for me. This is making a difference in these young kids' lives. And then you gave that social proof. So the next time you came around for those grants, it was no questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's like, yeah, this guy's really doing this. He didn't even need money. So like, let's really just pour into him.
100%. And that was the mission.
And so when you got started with this, like, did you structure it out as like a 501(c) nonprofit, or like was it just like you guys were just like, hey, let's do this right now?
We structured it as a 501(c) nonprofit. Because I wanted to do things the right way. We went through the government, and Canada's a little bit different in the structuring things, but we registered it and got everything going that way.
And I kind of wanted to ask you like about the difference. I'm glad you brought that up. Because I wanted to ask you if you were used to doing business in the U.S. versus Canada, and could you kind of give us a few of those nuances around how it's a little different?
Okay, that's a great question. In Canada, the government and resource-wise, I think we have a lot more opportunities and a lot more help from the government. Like there's so many grants, there's so many different things you can do that the government assists you with in that asset. That's big. I think in the U.S., the community help is much bigger. Like meaning, like if someone sees you selling T-shirts, he's not going to ask you for a discount right away. He's going to give you your full price. Now, the community-wise, your peers, people around you support you more, or they tend to support you more in the U.S. versus in Canada. But the government here is more strong, more powerful in terms of supporting the programs, and I feel like the government in the U.S. isn't as powerful. It's more of the community and the people around you. That's like the biggest dichotomy I see.
That's interesting. That's interesting when navigating. And I know we do have some followers that are located in Canada. So if you're thinking about starting something, like you are in a very advantageous position. So definitely look into some of those grants and some of that money that you can get.
So yeah, I kind of want to go now into like the GM positions, because I'm wondering, like, so you were doing the nonprofit. That was your first venture after you got started. So like, when was the next thing? Like, when did you start the GM jobs?
Well, it kind of went fast because when I was doing the nonprofit and Youth R Us, and then I started my for-profit company, Noir, I wasn't just doing like smaller things. I was doing big events in Toronto, like big basketball tournaments and big charity events, etc. And then I was doing big charity events in Houston, Texas. I was doing Afro culture in New York City. So I was building all of these relationships, and I was building a lot of cultural capital. And I'm like, I need to find a way that I can harness most of my high level attributes and put them into one profession. So I'm not bouncing around a lot. And that's when I kind of like, through COVID, like I'm like, let me attack being a couple things that can benefit me in a whole perspective. So I'm like, general manager is something I can do because I'm great at managing a large group of people. I'm great at making sure everyone eats. I'm great at listening to everyone's spiel and then figuring out a way to connect Jamal with Lester easily versus them not being able to connect because they don't see eye to eye. Like, I'm just great at doing those type of things. I'm great at comprehensive communication, not just communication. So that's how I kind of got into it, because baseball was always a thing that I loved. And Coach Sean Travers, who coached me in high school, was already running the baseball team. And so that made a marriage there. We had prior relationship. And on the basketball side with the Niagara River Lions, we built a rapport prior to us even making it happen. And then when COVID happened, it was like, yo, this is the next step, because I got to be in Toronto for the next 9 to 10 months. So I think this makes a lot more sense to like adapt and adjust and go to this lane now. And here I am.